We have driven men to this point where they feel like they really have no other options and they can only ask for help. Whatever your caregiver's environment was for you, your brain took that in as, this is how I do this. And once it adopted that and it worked for you, it said, okay, this is the way. Trauma is different for everyone. And the length of time you've kept that behavior, the depth of the pain that you've experienced, all has a very large impact.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast in partnership with Najahi Events, Vault Hill and Arabian Business. Now, men's mental health seems to be a bit of an issue that's talked about, but is it really dealt with? What about our traumas that we've experienced? What about traumas that we experience today in the relationships we're in, struggling to cope with the environment? We know that there are huge statistics around men committing suicide between the age of 45 and 50 because they just have despair. They've ended up in a life that they didn't want. They didn't get the results they wanted and the outcome they wanted, thus being left hopeless and literally thinking nothing more than maybe committing suicide. Today's guest is Elise Micheals. I started following her about 2 years ago, but in the last kind of 9 months, I've really paid attention to what she had to say, and a lot of her content really resonated with me. So if you're a man and you've struggled, or you're a wife and your man struggles, then this episode really is for you. Cue the music. Vault Hill is the world's first human-centric metaverse that's opened its doors for brands and entities to launch their presence in the metaverse in only 48 hours. This is the fastest activation ever and the first time ever any metaverse has offered this. Upon this activation process, brands will receive free virtual land in Vault Hill City and can give life to their metaverse presence by buying buildings in the Vault Hill marketplace and deploy it on their dedicated VLAND. Then brands can customize their land using unbounded creativity. They can display their own NFTs or upload different media, logos, or digital creations to start to capitalize from their digital assets. Go check out vaulthill.io. And lastly, thank you to Najahi Events, who have been sponsoring us now on the podcast for over a year. Najahi bring motivational speakers to the region to help inspire, educate, and motivate you to achieve better success and live a better life. Elise, thanks for joining us on the show today. I really appreciate your time. This is one of the few episodes that I do online because of my desire to be face-to-face with people. And boy, oh boy, do I wish we were face-to-face today dealing with a subject that you're a specialist in. But thank you so much for coming to join us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you doing it online, even though it's not your normal.
Right, you came across my social media feed probably 6 months ago. And I started to consume your content because I felt like you were talking to me. And that's what really resonated. As you looked into the camera, I'm like, and I didn't even think at first. And I was like, what does she know about me? It was almost like that. Why is she talking to me? And I connected with what you were saying. I connected with the points you were making. And it moved me. And there's a few pieces of your content that have brought me to tears over time. And so when it moved me, I knew that it must move other people too. But if we can go to the beginning, well, you're a men's mental health coach, so we don't need to go into lots of the bit behind, but why do you do this work?
I do it because I saw that there was not a lot of support for men when it came to mental health when I first started my business. And an internal reason, I wished that my parents had more tools so that I could have avoided many painful lessons in my life. So I'm very inspired to help adults so that they can help change the future for the next generation of children.
Was it what you experienced as a child that enabled your career to move in this direction, or were there other factors that played a part?
It was absolutely my experience as a child that made me move in this direction, but what I experienced as a child did not make me want to be a coach or anything like that. It was simply because I went through a very dysfunctional family, very painful events, that I wanted to heal all of that stuff for myself. And once I figured out there was a formula and a logical plan and a format to do it, I said I have to share this with everyone else.
Why do you think the vast majority of men, even today, still have this stiff upper lip and keep it in, and nobody needs to know about my problems, I shouldn't talk about it type of attitude? Why aren't more people embracing this?
I think more people are definitely starting to shift, but because it's such an ingrained habit and we're used to the societal expectations of men not showing emotions, that people are super uncomfortable with themselves when they start to share. They feel ashamed, they feel weak, they feel weird. And then for women, we've also been trained that men are weak if they cry or show emotion. We feel like they're not leaders. So we're met with men who feel ashamed to share and women who don't want men to share, even though there is this shift. So as more people become conscious and accept it and make it okay, there's still a lot of people who say they want it, but deny it when it shows up.
I think that I'll take myself from my own experience. I think that for many years, I was one of those people. It was like, you don't need to know or understand if people say to you, how you doing? It, but yeah, I'm fine. And, you try and move away from the uncomfortable question. Or it's like when you, in a networking situation, you sometimes find people, hi, how are you? No time. How's business? And everyone says, yeah, really good. Now, they could be just about to go bankrupt, but they're not going to tell you that when they meet you for the first time. And then they shift the conversation to, well, the kids, or to, did you play golf the weekend, or something to get away from focusing on that particular answer to that question. And I kind of feel that was me. It was just like, right, I'm going to shuffle away from this and just not face it up. But when I then experienced depression, and clinically was prescribed the clinical depression, that was the first time I realized that I actually could open up and people would listen. And so it took a big event for me to be able to be willing to be vulnerable. Is that common?
Absolutely. When men come to me for coaching, they are on a spiritual, mental, emotional deathbed where they just cannot resist change any longer, where they need to do something different because holding it all inside anymore, denying that they have feelings, saying that they can get through anything by themselves is just not working. And it's really unfortunate that we have driven men to this point where they feel like they really have no other options and they can only ask for help when they're about to jump off the ledge. We don't encourage women to do the same thing. Women have so much support. They go to their friends, they talk to their mom, they gossip with strangers on the bus. Like, men don't do that. They don't have the brotherhood and the partnership that women just naturally do. And so often they feel alone and isolated, and just like you, they need something to push them. And it's usually depression or suicidal ideation or divorce.
Talk to me about some of the examples that you've experienced. Divorce happens to me, 20 years ago, and it felt like somebody died. And it didn't feel like, we'd broken up. It literally felt there was a death. And after that experience of divorce, bear in mind, I came from a broken home as well. So my parents got divorced when I was 7 years old. I promised myself I would never get divorced if I got married. And then 5 years into a marriage, I then get divorced with 2 children. And so I've put my kids in exactly the same position that my parents put me. And that was like, everything's been done wrong. And I'm never, ever, ever going to put myself in that position again. So the resistance to ever getting married again, the resistance to never having kids again, that kind of stuff was really, really strong. Because of just how much was built up inside of me. How much was just like, I can't let this happen, never ever, no more. Like, the line in the sand has been crossed, never again can it be done. Is that common?
I think absolutely. When we experience dysfunctional childhoods or something that really hurts us, really wounds us, we often are like, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to be that person. But we resist actually doing the work that makes us be able to avoid that situation, because we don't realize the only reason that things repeat is because we are absorbing the patterns from our parents or the survival mechanisms to survive in that environment. So it's really unfortunate that the promises we make to ourselves often keep us trapped in cycles that cause us to have the outcome we do not want.
I think about the kind of whole idea of opening up to kind of explore that, and how we process that, but also how we sit with somebody that can really kind of extract that from us and bring it out from us so that we can make it very real. Is it tough to get guys to open up and for you to extract the information that you need to be able to really help somebody?
Well, like I said, when somebody comes to me, they're broken. They're broken open spiritually, mentally. They have come to me because they know they need to change. So for me, it is very easy to get that information. And I think it's because, like you saw me on social media, you felt like it was speaking to you. There's a level of trust that is created when someone feels heard and seen and validated. And I think that's what we're missing a lot from society, is people don't really listen. They take in what you're saying and try to solve it for you because they feel uncomfortable with your pain. But seeing someone's pain and validating it does so much more for them than trying to solve it for them.
That's quite interesting. I think about men and women. So when women when in a relationship, when a woman has a problem, she expresses the problem to the husband or the partner, and the husband wants to try and fix the problem. It's like, if she's got a problem, I'm going to try and fix it. So that's naturally what I try and do. And sometimes the woman doesn't want to be fixed. She just wants to be heard. So sometimes the guy gets that wrong, but it's natural that he just wants to fix it. Do you think that when guys talk to each other, that by sharing and talking to each other, because the other one just wants to try and fix it and come up with a solution, that maybe that message doesn't get delivered in the way that it should?
Well, absolutely. And usually men, if they start talking, usually they don't even get deep enough to fully express their own perspective on what they're going through, or they usually need a lot of alcohol and it comes out in a different way. So there are certain bonds between men where you can get deep and vulnerable, and I think that they understand and listen to each other, but most of the time it's very surface level, such as, hey, how's it going with the wife? Oh, not so good. Oh, what's going on? We're just fighting a lot. She feels like I don't listen to her. Oh, that sucks, man. Yeah, but anyway, how's the game going, right? Like, you say it in one sentence, nothing is really covered, nothing is really, like you said, it's uncomfortable and we don't know how to fix it. Like, for men, like you said, they're naturally driven to problem solve. So if they can't solve their own problem, they don't want to give it to anybody else to solve because they feel ashamed. They feel weak. They feel like, I'm failing at this. Why would I want to tell anybody about it? So they keep it inside.
Oh, that's so true. So true when you think about it. Do you think also that sometimes people, maybe when they have depression, don't acknowledge they've got depression? They just think they're a bit down in the dumps and a bit fed up. And because of that, it's not a big enough problem to take any time to explore with anybody.
So a lot of people are experiencing high functioning depression where they are doing everything that they usually do. They're going to the gym, they're going to work, they're getting things done, but they're scatterbrained. They're drinking tons of caffeine. They're not getting a lot of sleep. They're just not feeling connected or present. They are on autopilot. They don't realize that they're depressed because that's just their normal. And some people go through this for years and years, and it's not like anything is wrong because they're so used to it. It's just they never really truly feel joy. They never truly feel connected, and they just feel like fatigued. But it's not something that they ever bring to attention because everybody feels like this.
I think about that. It's like work's going okay, and then home life is just okay, or you're arguing with your partner, or the kids are being a pain in the ass, and you just fed up with everything, because together everything is the whole day. But we just got to get through it, because we still need the money to come in, we still need to pay the mortgage, we still need to make sure that there's food on the table, etc. And so you keep muddling through. And when you think there's no way out, sometimes the only way is to go through, isn't it?
Yes.
I try to think about, as I'm talking to you, I think about myself, I think about people that I know, that have suffered, that are suffering. I also think about people that I know that have got divorced. And sometimes, when we see this divorce rate as high as it is, I think a lot of the time divorce happens because it's almost like people give up too quickly, but because they don't get the right amount of support within their relationship, the right amount of counseling to work through the challenges that they have, that's the easy solution, is just to walk away and, move on. Do you notice that?
I think a lot of people say that, but from my experience with my clients, I actually see quite the opposite. I see people trying for a very long time. What I see as the ultimate thing for divorce is one spouse is trying and the other is not. One spouse has gone to therapy, they've wanted couples therapy, they read self-help books, and the other person just continuously blames them or has an addiction issue. And it's two dysfunctional people who are perfect matches for each other, but are not healthy. And one resists the urge to get healthy, and they resist that because it threatens their only way they know how to survive. Because as you experienced with the divorce, it feels like a death. Whenever you go through a growth journey, relearning literally how to do things, reprogramming certain behaviors in your brain, you lose who you think you are. And a lot of people are not brave enough to do that. So I see a lot of clients in marriages that they shouldn't have been, or that have changed, and they don't actually want to give up. And it's harder for men because they don't want to lose all their money and they don't want to lose custody of the kids, but they're so unhappy and they've tried for so long. I mean, that's what I see in my experience.
I think about my first marriage. I got married after a year with somebody, and I was 26 years old. And I think no man at 26 years old is suitably experienced in life enough to be marrying somebody at that young age. I look back on that and think that. I look at all of the mistakes I made, and I think that when you get into a relationship with somebody, you've got to spend enough time to get to know who they really are, because we have the sunshine and rainbows and the sparkles in the first year or so, and then you got to get to know who they really are. But then, is it because people change within the relationship, or do you think it's just because people tire of each other?
I think it's because people change, and they, like you said, a lot of marriages happen at a very young age, or at a time when we haven't experienced enough growth to understand ourselves. And so we find someone who either replicates our scenarios in childhood that are maybe dysfunctional and are a perfect match, right? How I pleased my parents is how I please this person, and that feels comfortable to me, so I will continue to go down this path. Or, we use it to fill a void. Like I was never loved enough subconsciously, right? This isn't a conscious thought that you're thinking, but subconsciously, maybe I don't feel so good about myself. And once this person came in, they really loved me. And so I'm going to do this marriage, but something is missing. But then society's like, this person is so great, you should be grateful. Most people don't find their person, like you live a good life. And we're kind of bullied into staying in situations we don't like. We're bullied into getting married too early. We're bullied into, just living lives that are not authentic. And we're bullied to keep that promise even if we change. Like you said, you made a promise to yourself, I will never ever get divorced. And that kind of eliminates, it's a really good thought process. Like I want to keep my word and I want to honor a commitment that I made. However, it also dishonors your authentic self and the ability to honor if something is no longer working, if something is no longer healthy. And we kind of trap ourselves in this place of limbo.
I learned about gratitude a while ago, and I always used to kind of laugh at people. I used to say, no, you need to have gratitude. If you have gratitude, then things will be better. And it really didn't resonate with me until I started to work with some young girls from Bangladesh who were from very poor environments, that were forced into marriage at the age of 12 years old with people that were 30 years old and older. But after spending time with them and now working with them, seeing them very regularly, it's almost like, it's like an injection when I'm with them that goes in, and it's a big syringe, like a massive syringe of gratitude that goes in. And I walk away from them after seeing them on maybe a Saturday afternoon, and I am amazing for the whole week on the back of that. It's like I feel so grateful because my worst day ever is still better than their best day ever. And so it reminds me how lucky I am. But I think that kind of, for men, is, I know for sure in any community I've been in, if I talk about gratitude with men, it's like, females talk about it, but guys don't talk about gratitude. Do you think they don't practice gratitude, or do you think they don't understand it, or do you think it's too much feminine energy?
I don't think gratitude is necessarily a feminine energy, but I think that men have been taught to suppress their emotions for so long, they really don't understand how to feel. They only understand how to feel angry or potentially happy or horny, right? Because those are the only okay feelings for men to have. And so when you talk about things like gratitude, it's like, yeah, they feel grateful, but what does that feel like viscerally? How do you feel it in your body? Many men don't know what that's like. Logically, men understand sad, happy, joy, gratitude, but they look at you funny when you say it because they've never felt it. They've never felt the change that true gratitude or true joy or true love can really bring to a person. And that's why they scoff at a lot of these things and call them feminine, or that's for women, because women feel their emotions viscerally because they were allowed to. Children, boy or girl, always feel all their emotions. It's not genetic, what we feel or don't feel, but men have been trained, don't feel that.
You talked about horny, you said horny, and I think that I was literally just with somebody the other day who hasn't slept with their partner for 4 years. And I'm sure you hear this a lot, but I don't, because I don't ask those questions. But they haven't slept with them for 4 years, and their partner travels half of the month as well. And they talk about the relationship being close and respectful and kind and affectionate. But yeah, that fizzled out. And I find that most bizarre, because although for me, the most intimate thing I can do with my partner, it's not necessarily what she thinks, but what I think, walking and holding hands, I find really intimate. And so if you're just holding hands, it's we hold hands, nobody else holds hands. It's like we only hold each other's hands. So that for me is very intimate and loving. But the thought of being in a relationship and not having sex for, I'm not a sex pest, but I don't know, a month or two, and that would be really alien to me. And so when I hear people saying they haven't had sex for 4 years and they don't do anything about it, they just kind of like mosey on down a path and just accept it for what it is, I think you become brother and sister or best friends or something rather than, lovers.
Yeah, a lot of relationships turn into roommate situations where the intimacy dies, they stop sleeping together, they then go into different rooms and just kind of live like that. And no man I've ever spoken to has been happy about that situation. But nothing is being done about it. And I think people just kind of give up at a certain point and settle in a way that is not like necessarily like your partner's horrible and now you have to live with this. It's like you stop trying and you just say nothing is going to change, and then you stop trying to change anything, and then you lose kind of the light within yourself, because once you feel out of control, out of power in your life, that's when the darkness starts to set in. You feel like this is just how it is, and it's never going to get better.
I believe that this no sex problem for a long period of time is bigger and wider than maybe most people give it credit for. So if I came to you and that was one of my issues, said, look, I've not been having sex with my wife for a long time. I love her with all my heart. I love my kids. You know, she's a wonderful woman. She takes care of her. She makes great food. She has a career as well. And I'm really proud of her for what she does. And she's done a great job with the children, but we just don't have sex. How would you teach me, or what process would we go through to try and get that side of the relationship back on track?
Well, I mean, first we would analyze what you have done about it so far, right? Have you talked to your partner about it? In what way have you spoken with your partner about it? Have you done couples therapy? You know, what is the underlying issue? Like, was there a big event that made it stop? Was there a death in the family? Did someone lose their job? Right? There's a lot of different factors that can make this type of situation happen. And often people withdraw physical intimacy when the emotional intimacy is gone. And that's something a lot of men don't understand or realize because they haven't been allowed to express emotional intimacy, right? So for them, they are trying to capture all of their intimacy and love and feelings and emotion and joy in a sexual act. And for women, we separate, right? And if we're not feeling emotionally bonded and connected, we don't necessarily want to open up physically. So it's confusing to both parties if you don't understand where each other is coming from. And usually this type of scenario happens when the partners are not in good communication. Like, just because you are talking to your partner doesn't mean you're actually communicating with your partner, understanding them, seeing them, acknowledging what's going on. And so if something is prolonged for a period of time where you're not being intimate for years, there are unresolved issues that once resolved might open up that doorway again.
In your experience, is it relationship issues or career? They say that the highest rate of suicide for men is between the age of 45 and 50, which leads me to believe that, if you take the stereotypical example, the guy leaves, whether it's college or an apprenticeship of some sort, goes into the workplace, has great ambitions about his career, has dreams about what he wants to achieve, and they can be grandiose or they can be mediocre. It doesn't matter. It's what anybody actually wants. But then they get to this age of 45 and they look back and it's like, fuck, that wasn't what I was planning, and look at where I am, and I still don't have enough money to retire, and I still haven't paid the mortgage off, and I still didn't get the promotion. I'm still just an employee, and it can be really sad to get to that place and feel that you've basically failed, and then you feel shame. Is that very, very common in what you experience? Is that one of the the pillars almost of the problem?
Absolutely. Those two, I think, are the biggest factors. And when it comes, and I'm not an expert on this, so like, don't quote me on this as like a medical advice or anything. When it comes to like suicidal ideation, the combination of a failed relationship and failed finances are what drives men to the edge, because they do not feel like men anymore. They don't feel like they have any hope. They don't feel like anything is ever going to get better for them. And so, yeah, I mean, most men that come to me, their finances and careers are great because, like you said, they've gone down the path. They've done everything that a man is prescribed to do, but their relationship has suffered immensely, either because they focused so much on career and work because they wanted to support the family, and now they've ignored the emotional, physical, mental side of the relationship, or they haven't gotten in one altogether, right? Or it's at the edge of divorce. So that's usually what I see in my clients and in the people I talk to.
2012, I was fired from a company that I'd helped to build for 16 years and was one of the founders. I took a year of gardening leave, which I was paid not to work for a year, which I thought when I accepted it was a really smart idea. I just had an operation on my back, so I needed to recover. I hadn't seen lots of my friends and family for a long time, so I thought I could take some time to go and visit them. And I did all of that over the course of about 6 weeks. And then I now still had 10 and a half months before I could do anything. And so slowly I went down and down to the point where I wasn't sleeping. There was 3 nights I didn't sleep at all. I went to the gym twice a day to try and time myself out to sleep. I couldn't sleep. And I decided that, you know what? What's the point? You know, there's money for the kids. Their stepfather's a nice enough guy. They've got their mum. They don't need me. I'm of no value anyway. Well, the world won't even know. It won't even know if I'm gone. It won't even acknowledge it. It won't recognize it. And so what's the point of continuing? And I wasn't emotional. I wasn't, crying. I was very clear. It was just, it's end of that, I just die. If I just die, that's the easiest thing to do. And so what I did is I studied what the options were, and I made my decision on what option I was going to take and planned out what I was going to do. I was very calm about it. There wasn't any emotion. And up until the point that it was identified by my dad, believe it or not. And once he identified it, he did something to get in the way and stop that happening. But up until that point, I was very calm and very clear about what I wanted to do. But I just felt worthless. And I felt I'd almost gone from hero to zero, and then I became invisible. And that really impacted me to the point that it took me probably to 2019, so 7 years, to fully recover. I was prescribed antidepressants. I was in a clinic for a week. I had various therapy, counseling, people to help me. But I just felt every time I was talking to someone, I was just telling everyone my problems, and I wasn't able to solve them. I was just asked more questions, really. So it was almost like talk yourself to exhaustion, rather than is there something to fix this? What's the fix? I just want the fix. Is it screws? Is it bolts? Is it tablets? Is it, what's the fix? Is it, what is it? Give me the fix. And the only thing that ever was, here's your fix, was antidepressant, which I refused to take. I hope that nobody goes through at all what I went through, ever, because it was a horrific experience. But I'm pretty sure I'm not on my own.
Exactly. Just as you said that, I hope nobody goes through this. So many people are experiencing what you experienced, and I'm so sorry you had that experience. And you are so valid in your statement of, I was just talking about my problems and I just wanted a solution. So often when we are healing, there's a lot of rhetoric out there about, talk about your problems. And I think that's also why a lot of men avoid therapy and avoid talking about it, because they want solutions. And that's also why I'm the type of coach that I am, because when I went to therapy, that I had a similar experience, and I love my therapist. She's still my therapist today. But after about 1.5 years, I felt like I'm still in the same cycles. And although it's good to go to therapy, why am I not better, quote unquote? And so that's when I dove into the neuroscience and the trauma therapy and relationship science and all of these things to figure out actual methods and understand the body physiology, and that you really can take control. And the second that you understand on a very logical, scientific level that you can control how you feel, the power switch turns on, and you just feel a different way. And I'm not sure if that was your experience once you started to feel better in 2019. Maybe you had a mission again. Maybe you had something that you were looking forward to. But it's almost like the second that we step out of the quote unquote depression bubble and put our focus on the future, put our focus on the solution, put our focus on working towards something, the depression and the sadness and the feeling of worthlessness just naturally tends to die away.
Mission, purpose, the two most underrated words on this planet, and so critical to my well-being. Having something to aim for and knowing that it's achievable, having something to hold on to, is, as much as it's, because mission and purpose is said quite freely, isn't it? Yeah, we need a mission, we need purpose, these goals, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, yeah, we need all these things. Yeah, boy, if you've got them, then guess what? Your life's going to be amazing. And it's just, but they're massive. They're massive because mission, and it can be, in my own experience, it can be career mission. It can be, purpose-led mission based around something I care about. It doesn't always have to be work, but for most of us, okay, work's important. And so, because we have to put food on the table, and that mission needs to be an outcome. And if you're in a salaried job, it could be the promotion. If you're in a salaried job, it could be a project you're working on and getting it done. And a lot of the time people think about long-term goals. I've seen this a lot in a lot of the work that I do. And I don't believe anybody should have long-term goals. I believe everybody should have short-term goals, because I believe if you can see the finish line, it makes it way more realistic. And so I urge people to think just 3 months ahead. Think about what can be achieved in 3 months' time. Give ourselves a goal, okay? Work out what the actions are we need to take every day to achieve it, and double down on those actions. Because if you do, you'll keep busy every day. And because you're busy, when you're busy, your mind doesn't take you to those dark places as easy. As long as it's stuff that you want to do rather than what you don't want to do. And I see so many men that are out there that I'm like, what is your mission? Okay. I'm part of a men's networking group called METAL, which stands for Media, Entertainment, Technology, Arts and Leaders. And it's based in LA. And it's a group of men, okay, run by a guy called Ken Rakowski. And it's an awesome group of people. The first time I met Ken, I walked into somebody's house, and he was here in Dubai. He's from LA. And he's like, "Hi, Spence, nice to meet you. What makes you cool?" And I was like, "What?" And I'm English, and he's American. And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Excuse me? What makes me cool?" I have a podcast. It's the biggest English speaking podcast. So what? Everyone's got a podcast. I went, "I've got 2 amazing daughters at university." So what? Everyone's got kids. And I was like, "Huh." And then my friend went, "Spencer, you're making a documentary on human trafficking, for goodness sake." And he went, "Wow." He said, "That makes you cool." And when he said it to me, I was like, yeah, no, I now feel cool. But I didn't realize that I did before, because I wasn't focused on it in the same way. If you got every man to line up that was feeling bad about themselves, and you help them identify a goal, something to work towards, do you think that would solve a big chunk of their problems?
I think it would definitely help. Because people, in order to move forward, need something to look forward to. And a lot of men who feel worthless don't have anything to look forward to, like your experience. And so many people with depression have that experience of, I just have nothing to look forward to.
Okay, so I had the depression in 2016. I'd started a company and started to build another company, but I wasn't motivated by it. And so Danielle, my business partner, I said to her one day, "Do you want to run the business?" And she's like, "What do you mean by that?" And I'm like, "Do you want to take it over? Do you want to run everything?" And she's like, "Give me back your car park pass." I was like, "Where do you need my car park pass? You have a car park pass." She's like, "Yeah, but I don't need you to come to the office, because if you want me to be the boss here, you need to allow me to be the boss. So you're going to need to step away and not come to the office." And I'm like, "Yeah, go Danielle. That's awesome. Okay, fair enough." Little piece of me died inside in that moment, but okay, I believed it was the best thing to do. That was one of not that the company's done much better with her running it than me, but for me, that caused me further problems, because I've now got businesses that pay me money. Okay, I get income from these businesses, so I don't have to worry about any of them, but I don't have a job. So it's almost like I've retired myself. And that was dark again. I went through another phase of things becoming really dark again. It's like, and it just came back again to mission and purpose. It was like, what do I do now? I know I've just created utopia for myself financially. I don't have to do anything. Money gets paid to me every month. You know, that's what people's dream is, to get to that point. You know, I've got there, but now no mission, no purpose. What do you do? And so that took me down to that dark place again. It's like, you feel very lonely. And my wife is starting to say, "What are you doing here every day? Why are you at home? Go and do something. You're annoying me." And so I started to get, rather than get support from my wife, she was like, What are you doing? And the reason I tell you this kind of stuff, Elise, is that look, I want other people to maybe share and think about how much some of this might resonate with them as well. I don't think men's mental health only means suicide, darkest of days ever, on the edge, the world's, over. A lot of men's mental health issues can be related to things like loneliness, and I say loneliness is a killer, but loneliness may not be a killer, but it's not nice, is it?
Well, yeah, no, it almost is. I mean, loneliness is a killer. Solitary confinement is the worst punishment that we give to people in the U.S. when they are in prison, right? So when people feel so alone, that is when they have suicidal ideation. But you're exactly right. Like, mental health is just another aspect of your health, like physical health is, like spiritual health is. How healthy do you feel? It's like if you're physically okay, but you're not working out and you're not eating right and whatever, like, just because you're okay doesn't mean you're like the best you could be. So why wouldn't you work on it, right? Why wouldn't you strive to do more, to be as healthy as you could be? And it's the same with mental health. Nothing has to be wrong with you for you to want to improve it, for you to want to learn things about yourself, to experience self-reflection and maybe what deeper intimacy looks like for you. Like, everything could be going good for you in your life, but if you've never done any self-reflective work, why not? Why not try to strengthen that muscle and dig deeper into being who you are, dig deeper into the mission that you might have, into the work that you do? It can be as much of an enlightening experience as it is to get yourself out of a hole. And honestly, I think that's what we should look at, right? Like, we need to be solution focused as opposed to just always problem focused. Nothing has to be wrong with you in order for you to want to be the best.
Do you have a therapist?
Yeah.
And do you have a therapist? You said earlier you had a therapist that you work with. The therapist that you work with, what do you work on with your therapist? What kind of stuff? I don't want to go into details. Obviously, that's your own private life. But what kind of stuff do you typically talk about generically?
I mean, it's evolved. She's been my therapist for like 5 or 7 years. So in the beginning, it was more like crisis therapy where I was on the edge. I just got out of a bad breakup. So we were talking about relationship things. And, then 6 months later, transitioned into childhood stuff because I told her stuff that I had never told anyone that I thought didn't matter in my life. But actually, I found out, oh, that really wasn't healthy in childhood. It wasn't a normal thing. And as I have grown into my own coach and studied all of these modalities, I'm able to look at it from such a different perspective. And now it's almost like I consult with her about these issues, and I'm able to observe it from such a, almost like an equal counterpoint person's standpoint, where like therapists are very non-directive. They don't give you action items. They don't tell you what's going on in the body. They don't tell you anything about the neuroscience. And so now that I know all of these things, I kind of utilize her in a way that is very beneficial to me, improving my knowledge of the therapeutic world.
Do we know statistics around the rise of the work that's done towards men's mental health over the last decade, let's say? We say it's becoming more frequent and common, but do we know any statistics around the adoption of the seriousness of the subject and the work that's being done or the actions being taken?
I don't have access to any statistics at this moment. I have access to statistics about the suicide rates. And, it's very interesting because I think, like what you said before, we focus a lot on the negative statistics as opposed to the positive statistics, like the rise in men's mental health. I'm not sure if there are even statistics on that yet, especially because I think within like the last 3 years since I started, it's seen a huge surge, right? And before that, it was really, really still kind of underground. And now within the last decade, I think we've seen a surge in mental health for everyone in every kind of gender and LGBTQ, and all these things are just kind of exploding as we, come into new identities and everything like that. So I would be curious to see that as well.
I'd love to see a graph showing the difference that's been made, because I think that graph, if it has improved consistently, I think that graph is going to maybe motivate men to think a little bit more, and maybe not sit there and bite their lip and keep the stiff upper lip and, shuffle it underneath the notepad and just say, you know what, this is happening. More people are doing it. This is something maybe I should try too, because maybe we can save some more people from that as well. We see it talked about in the workplace. One of my companies is a corporate wellness business. And so in the workplace, we see that, people want to do workshops on understanding this kind of stuff way more than they ever used to. 5 years ago, there was nobody that would have asked for a men's mental health workshop. Well, here, a mental health workshop, not a men's one. But we're seeing far more now that they want to try and educate men as best they can to understand this. What's interesting, though, is when you put a group of men in a room and you talk about it, and they're a group and they work together already, and there's different levels of seniority in the room, that, arms get folded and the kind of like shuffle in the seat, feeling a bit uncomfortable because they're in that room and they don't necessarily want to open up. But the least you can do is share the information. At least they can go and think about that, right?
Yeah, and in that environment, it is actually very hard, because when you mix work and emotion, things, lines are blurred, right? And in today's society, we're like, oh, you should be able to share things with your boss or with, your coworkers. I personally don't necessarily agree with this, because just like I'm not personally sharing my own pains with my clients, because then the lines are blurred and there's a different level of trust that seniority needs to have with their team. Like, parents shouldn't share all of their emotions with their children. We shouldn't blur all the lines. There's an appropriate amount versus a not appropriate amount. It doesn't mean we can't be open and vulnerable about some things or have an open, palette, but everybody needs someone that they can go to. And it just, you have to choose wisely that specific person. I mean, that's just my personal perspective on that.
If I was suffering and I was struggling and I came to you and I reached out, what would you be able to offer me? Tell me how I can engage with your work, and rather than just assuming what you do online, how do I get some FaceTime, man? How do I get some time with you,
For anybody who wants FaceTime with me, I have, something called a clarity call, which is a 75-minute call where, you explain to me what's been going on, what you want to work through. I ask you specific questions to see where this behavior might have started, so we get to the root cause of it. And then I will teach you how the physiology of the body works combined with the mind, so that you can understand your triggers and understand how to reprogram the behavior and habit into something that benefits you, as opposed to something that is just subconsciously playing in the background that you're unaware of.
Okay, so that's one way. And so 75 minutes, I'll just get that one-to-one chance to spend that time with you, and we come out with some form of almost strategy that I can deploy myself after that call, yeah?
Right. There's an action plan that I give you. I give everyone a follow-up email with main talking points, session summary, action items, extra materials that might help you dive deeper into the knowledge. I talk a lot about neuroscience in the body, so things to expand your knowledge. And beyond that call, if someone wanted to continue coaching, if we found we were a good fit, then I have a one-on-one program that is a 13-week program.
And what does that include?
It's 13 sessions via Zoom, once every week, same day, same time. Unlimited WhatsApp support in between sessions, so that if you have an idea come up, if you want to talk about something and you need extra materials, we keep the conversation going so you don't have to wait until the next session. They get the follow-up emails, like I just said, the recorded sessions, and it's only 13 weeks. So it's very fast, it's very compact, and at the end of each session, you have an action item that is going to make it the least amount of stress in your life for the most amount of impact. So I've kind of created this system over the last 3 years with men that really works for them, so that they get results fast and you're not sitting in front of me for like 10 years at a time.
We're want results fast. Okay. Couple of questions I want to ask you. Why men? How did that happen? Was that conscious, subconscious? Did it just fall that way? Or did you start off going, it's going to be all about men?
No, it totally just happened. I started my business on LinkedIn by posting videos that were inspirational, and I intended to be a woman's spiritual coach, and only men reached out to me when I posted these videos. And I was like, this is very weird. I don't know how to help men. They're so much older than me and more successful than me. But like, let's try it. I mean, I did this formula. I know how to work with pain. So let me see if I can help. And once I did, that's when I realized that men don't have a lot of support when it comes to mental health. And I said, why don't I just be that person? Women have a lot of help. I'm going to be the one for men.
And we're very glad that you decided that, for sure. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of things here. Subconscious trauma. Let me describe subconscious as I understand it, okay? So we have a conscious brain, a subconscious brain. Our subconscious brain, to me, is almost like a risk management device. It's the part of the brain that wants you to stay on the sofa, packet of Cheetos, remote control on the chest, don't take any risks, stay very still, and chill out in front of the TV. The conscious brain is the one that says, no, get up, you lazy ass, let's go work out and get fit. And so the conscious mind has to really overpower the subconscious mind to be able to get stuff done. But the subconscious brain just doesn't want us to do anything that might cause any harm to us in terms of physically any harm to us in this example. Do you see it similarly, or can you describe it differently?
Yeah, I mean, the way that you have an understanding of it is exactly right. Subconscious literally means below consciousness. So it's geared to help us survive physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. When you're a baby, you have no idea how the world works, right? You're born, humans are useless. We rely on our caregivers to teach us how to receive love, gain success, gain validation, attention. So whatever your caregiver's environment was for you, whatever behaviors you had to create and do in order to get love from them, your brain took that in as, this is how I do this. And once it adopted that and it worked for you, it said, okay, this is the way. And you never think about it ever again until your adulthood, when you run into roadblocks and relationships aren't working out, or you feel unmotivated all the time, or you fail at certain things. That's the only time that you ever take a look at the behaviors that you have and try to change them. Or else, yeah, your subconscious just runs the show because your brain doesn't have time to think about, how do I rewire things that I've been doing for 10 years? It doesn't think like that.
Makes a lot of sense. The subconscious trauma that we experience, is that easy to manage?
Well, I mean, it really just depends on what you mean by easy to manage. From a logical perspective, there is a very easy, logical process to solve trauma, but trauma is different for everyone. And the length of time you've kept that behavior, the depth of the pain that you've experienced, all has a very large impact on how, quote unquote, easy it is to manage and to solve.
You started a podcast. It's called Thank You Pain, or Thank Your Pain.
Yeah, Thank Your Pain.
How long have you had it going?
Well, the podcast has only been going for a couple years. The concept has been around for like 6 or 7.
So you've been running it for a couple of years. So I enjoy podcasts, and it's something that I would do with all of my time if I was able to. Do you get a lot from running a podcast?
I get much more from doing my video content, where you found me, because I love video, right? So the podcast is an extra bit where I can interview people like you to get more wisdom, to get knowledge I've never had, to help out my people. But video content is my forte, and I would love my own show one day. That's what I will do when, I can just be doing my own thing.
Do you think you could be the next Dr. Phil?
Well, I don't know if I want to be him, because he's a lot of drama. But, I have said maybe I can be like Ellen or Oprah, something a little fun mixed in with, a little seriousness.
And what's to stop you doing that?
I mean, I don't think anything's. I'm going to get it eventually. Like, I've 500,000 followers now. I think I can have my own show. Why not? Would you watch it if I had one?
I would for sure watch it without a shadow of a doubt.
Well, maybe we should start. Maybe I'll just do a GoFundMe or something. I'll just do a YouTube channel.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible if you've got the right mindset towards it. A lot of people would say that's overwhelming, but the fact that you laugh about it, but there's a secret desire in there to let that happen, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is something I've wanted since I was younger. Like, this was my desire as a child, manifesting now in a way that I had no idea that it was going to manifest this way. So for me, I'm laughing because I know for me it's the truth, and I don't care what anybody else thinks because I'm living it. And for me, it's coming true, right? I never thought, I always believed I could have millions and millions of followers and help people. But when you're at 17,000 followers and you're like, okay, I'm grinding every day, and people are like, whatever. And then all of a sudden you gain 100,000 in 1 month. I believed that could happen to me. Nobody else. But like now it keeps growing, and I'm like, I knew this could happen, and I'm just going to keep doing the work until I get what I want. And I don't really care what anybody else says.
I love that attitude. That's amazing. Tell me, did it come as a shock to you that growth of 100,000 came? Because I've been obviously following your content. I've seen it grow, and I'm like, go girl, as if every time I see you say thank you to the guys and whatnot. But I mean, it really has been quite a meteoric rise over recent time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in October, I only had 17,000 followers, and now I'm almost at 200,000, and we're February 2nd. So that is, it's an insane amount of growth, and I'm so grateful. I have the best community. It's not a bunch of robots. It's like real people who participate, and they're so kind and so courteous, and they really want to help themselves. And I just feel so blessed that I am and this channel for that healing, and I really try not to take it for granted.
Oh man, you absolutely shouldn't. Of course you shouldn't. But TikTok's big, Instagram's big, 500,000 followers. You're doing really well from that point of view. And you know what? When you think about percentages going up, a 10% increase is 50,000, 20% increase is 100,000. And so you start to think about those dynamics. And hey, who's to say you can't have 1 million by the middle of this year? Who's to say?
We're open. We're getting there. Hopefully by the end of this year, I'm going to say. But
okay, so let's just talk about your business for a second on it, because this is really quite interesting. A lot of people will look at that and say, right, how's she getting those followers? What is she doing? What's her strategy? What's she deploying here? Okay, is it literally you're asking your audience to share your content, or is it just because for some unknown reason it resonated with enough people over a period of time for it to go ping? What was it?
yeah, so I've never asked anyone to share my content because I believe that if they want to share it, they're gonna. You know, you're not an idiot. If you like something, you share it with someone. It's never because anyone told you to share it. What I found is, well, people obviously have short attention spans. So I really just try to communicate my message as clearly and concisely as possible in the shortest amount of time. So I used to do like 1 minute long videos, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and I really used to explain concepts. And, on TikTok, I was at like 4,000 followers. And then one time I just said like one sentence that was like, I don't know what man needs to hear this, but, stop investing in that woman who, is not invested in you. And that is the one that like set everything off. It was so short, it was so quick, and people felt it. And, I just studied my audience, and I watched and I listened. Listen being how, like, are they sharing this? Are they liking this? That's listening to your audience, right? They like this type of content, so I need to focus more on this. So the shorter my messages are and the more concise, the faster I grow.
Yeah, it's amazing. You should be really proud of yourself. Honestly, really, really proud of yourself. Do you know who Dr. Julie Smith is?
I do not.
Okay, so you'll find her on TikTok. Have a look. Okay, it was Dr. Julie Smith's content that I consumed, and then I stumbled across your content, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Dr. Julie Smith with an American accent. So yeah, she watch her content. If you don't know her, she has many, many millions of followers. And again, just because she's short, sharp explanations of stuff to explain how you were feeling, how to deal with it, and on the back of it, it's been fantastic. And I tried to book an appointment with her, okay? So I got hold of her people and I said, look, I want to book an appointment with her. They said, yeah, no problem at all. And the earliest appointment she had to give me was 5 months' time. Because she's in such demand because of the great work that resonates with every people. And so for sure, you're going to be in that position very soon as well. So my diary's full. Sorry, guys. Trying to manage all of that. Okay, a couple more questions before we finish. How do you define success and happiness?
I think success and happiness is the constant pursuit of your growth and surrender to your natural state of being.
Surrender to your natural state of being.
Which I see as abundant and loving and whole and full of gratitude, like you described earlier. If you constantly practice just being present, you will attract to you much more than you ever expected.
I think we underestimate the importance of happiness. I think if you're happy, do you know what? Happiness to me is like money. Okay, I'll explain why. If you have cash flow in a business, meaning money's coming through the door, you keep breathing. The business keeps breathing. It doesn't matter what else is going on around. As long as money keeps coming through the door, you survive. Yeah. Happiness to me is like that. As long as you're happy, whatever's going on around you, you can handle. And whether that's an inner happiness or an outer happiness, as long as you're happy, as long as you sit down and go, you consider yourself lucky and you're happy, you can fight most battles. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I think when you feel in control and if you feel like you are a resilient person who can persevere and that everything is working in your favor, you can get through anything. Because then, like you said, when the challenges come, it's not necessarily that you're happy and, oh my God, now I'm sad because the bad luck has come. It's just like, oh, this is actually going to help me create more happiness because I'm going to find a solution to this problem. And then I'm going to have another tool in my kit and I'm going to get that dopamine hit again. And so that's kind of how I see life is I trust that I am universally taken care of and that if something hurts me or something bad happens, I literally have programmed myself now to think something good is really coming right now because it's creating space for that new thing.
Elise Micheals, thank you so much for coming to join us on the show today. You're an absolute joy. I love following you. I love the way that you move me. And I love that my audience have got a chance to hear you share your thoughts and ideas with us. And I look forward to them all following you. What is the Instagram handle?
Thank you so much, Spencer. And the Instagram handle is at Elise Micheals, ELISEMICHEALS, Mike Heels. It's a little bit weird sounding, looking, so.
If you don't find her, trust me, you will. When this comes out, guys, for all of you that are watching this content, do me a favor, reach out, give her a follow. She's got an ambition to grow her audience. I know many of you, this will resonate with. So please do me a favor, just to me, if nobody else. Go give her a follow, consume some of her content. I promise you, you will be hooked. We'll see you on the next episode.